It's so important not to use spiritual practice to set up an ideal or to judge yourself. Sometimes you just need to shut down, and then you open again. So the spiritual path is really about being with both the calm ocean and the storm. Says Jack Kornfield in episode 291 of Heart Wisdom, the calm ocean and the storm, navigating duality. This is a video episode, first filmed about 6 months ago for the Food Revolution Network, who are dedicated to educating us humans on what is healthy to put in our bodies and how to do that in a way that is healthy for the earth. Things we probably should have learned in school, but here we are. Ocean Robbins of the Food Revolution Network takes the interview role and really picks Jack's brain about how to navigate duality. The calm ocean, please excuse all of the ocean metaphors here. You could just say with Ocean and the Food Revolution Network, there's just a lot of low-hanging fruit. And what I really like about this episode is that Ocean asks the big spiritual questions. I feel a lot of us who have been in the community for a while, we skip over a lot of the simple, direct, how to navigate this life questions. And we focus a lot on the things that we've learned and trying to apply them rather than coming back to beginner's mind. And this is a podcast that invites us to come back to the basics, which I find refreshing. The main quote, that it's important not to use spiritual practice to set up an ideal or judge yourself. I've been playing around lately since getting back from the Taos ashram with the idea that when we do something with love, mindfulness is already instilled within it. So I'd like to do a little experiment. If you have something around you right now, maybe a cup or a pen or whatever, I invite you to pick it up and put it down and feel what that experience is like. Now, I would like you to try it with mindfulness. Really be mindful with the picking up and the putting down of the process. Great. And now, I invite you to do it with bhakti, with devotion, with love, with loving awareness. Pick it up and put it down with love. So, I don't know if you noticed the qualitative difference between these three motions, which were basically the same. But when we're just going about in our daily habits, we're on a train of momentum and it's just happening. How many times have you picked that thing up that you picked up there that was just like that? Then, the next level, we have the mindfulness. And yes, when we're mindful, it's amazing. We can slow things down and really be present with them, really be present with the motion and the experience. But there is something so different when we then infuse it with love, with loving awareness, with bhakti. Mindfulness follows love like a shadow. For myself and the people that tried this experiment, almost all of us felt more mindfulness and astute care when we were picking it up and putting it down with love than when we were trying to be mindful. There was almost a feeling of judgment or like a teacher watching over you while you're trying to write something quality to the mindfulness, where the love was slow, careful, and infused with a quality of presence and sharing. And let's be honest, it just feels really good. And no spiritual practice isn't supposed to be about just feeling good. But what Jack invites us into in this podcast and in this quote is that spiritual practice is not there for us to judge ourselves. But how often do we use mindfulness in a way that we are not meeting our lives or ourselves with loving awareness? We're starting to meet ourselves with judging awareness. I remember Krishnadas saying that every time you come back to the present moment, it's a miracle. And I know very often when I get caught and then notice, oh, whoa, I was caught, I will lament myself for having been gone for so long, when instead, we should be throwing ourselves a little party. Like, woo, we made it back. Make it inviting to want to come back to the present moment so it becomes a habit and we're not trying to shirk ourselves away from that mindful awareness. So my invitation to you this week that I picked up from listening to this wonderful podcast is to do things with love, with loving awareness, to meet your spiritual practice with a sense of love rather than judgment, and just see how your week transforms. And if you're looking for more opportunity to transform, pardon the segue, Jack is reopening his Discovering Your Buddha Nature course for an online cohort starting June 2nd. This is a deep dive into Buddha's 10 perfections, told in a modern way so that we can truly transform our lives through the lens of Buddhism, through the lens of love, through the lens of generosity. This is a way for you to connect with students in a focused learning group and take part in 2 live question and answer sessions online with Jack. If you are interested, that is at jackkornfield.com, and I'll also make sure to put a link in the show notes for you. So there we go. Thank you for being here as always. This is episode 291 of the Heart Wisdom Podcast, The Calm Ocean and the Storm, Navigating Duality with Ocean Robbins of the Food Revolution Network. May you be happy and healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you help the world through your authenticity. And may you find peace and love within the calm ocean as well as the storm. Namaste.
Jack, just to start things off, can you tell us a little bit about what led you on the path to mindfulness as a life work?
Suffering.
Suffering, yeah.
Which we all have. It's part of life. It's not, life, as you said, is magnificently beautiful, and that's also an ocean of tears, to borrow your name for a moment. It's got both.
Yeah.
And I was in university studying pre-med, and I went from an organic chemistry class to hear this professor who'd come up to Dartmouth from Harvard, Dr. Wing-Sit Chan, and he talked about Lao Tzu and Confucius and the Buddha. Sat cross-legged on the desk, and he said, the Buddha taught that there's suffering in life and that there's a path to the end of it. And he paused, and I kind of leaned forward. I said, my father was a abusive and very violent person. So our family had a lot of suffering, and it was pretty unstable in other ways. And I realized that I needed to learn something more than chemistry or mathematics, that I didn't know how to deal with my grief or my emotions or my fear or my own anger. And so I began a path of trying to understand that, which led me to become a monk in a Buddhist monastery.
Suffering is, rightly or wrongly, it seems to be one of the ways we humans learn so often. And I'm curious, the question has burned in my heart for so long, like, why would God make pain? Like, if Creator can create anything, why is there suffering in the world? Why is there pain in the world? Why is there loss and devastation? What is the purpose of it? Like, I know that's a big question, and we all have our different religions and cosmologies and ways of holding that, but you've gone pretty deep with the purpose and the meaning of life. So I'm curious if you have an answer to that.
Well, I'll say something. I'm not going to offer an answer that would be foolish, and I'm quite foolish, but that would be extravagantly so. But you can't have birth without death. You can't have light without dark. You can't have beginnings without endings. We live in a universe, in a constructed of opposites. And that's just the game of form and duality. You can't have form without emptiness from which it comes. I remember a friend of mine was leading a retreat for children. She was a meditation teacher, but also a preschool teacher. And she had 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. She said, I want to talk about death. And kids are really interested in this. They're not frightened. They kind of want to understand, what is the game? What are we here? They're looking around saying, wow, I got born. What is this like, this place? And so she said, things that are born, they also die. They live for a time. Why don't you go out in the woods where they were and bring back whatever you can that you find that's died? So they ran out and they brought back dead leaves and sticks, and somebody found like a dead lizard or a bone from a mouse or a bird, and they made a pile so that they could actually look at it. And then she said, suppose there wasn't any death. How would that be? And one little boy said, well, then there'd be more and more and more trees, and there'd be no room for us. We live in a universe that's recycling itself, the ultimate recycling of birth and death and form and then rebirth. And then for us as human beings, the question is not why or how. The Buddha didn't actually answer those questions. He said those are questions that don't tend to understanding. He said, what I'm interested in is how to navigate the universe as it is in a way that brings love, well-being, freedom to all who want to awaken to this. So I want to read a poem, Ocean. It's called Everyday Grace by Stella Nisanovich. And she writes, it can happen like that. Meeting at the auto repair, buying tires amidst the smell of rubber, the grating sound of jackhammers and drills. Anywhere we share stories, grace flows between us. The tire center waiting room becomes a healing place as one speaks of her husband's valve replacement, bed sores from complications. A man speaks of multiple surgeries, notes his false appearance as strong and healthy. I share my sister's death from breast cancer, her youngest only 7. A woman rises, gives her name, Mrs. Henry, then takes my hand, and suddenly an ordinary day becomes holy ground. Mm-hmm. And what we make of this poem in some way is to understand that life also touches the heart, opens even in the midst of suffering. And it does so when we come together, when our eyes are open and our hearts are open, when our hands underneath it all. That's part of this human journey of being able to navigate this universe of duality. And with all the things that are happening, as you named, the global things of climate change and continuing warfare and racism and conflict and all those other things, and then, of course, the elections. The point isn't just to find solace. Okay, let's come together and hold hands and say it, let's make it better. To soothe, but actually to invite a more courageous and remarkable sense of self, which is really who we are underneath it, to be present for this magnificent world with an open heart and a caring spirit.
I often reflect that in the presence of pain, our hearts either expand or contract. Like they either include the pain and make peace with it in some way, or they shy away from it. And all too often in the world, we pull away from pain, and I think that creates its own kind of suffering. It seems to me that the witness is a place that somehow just is with whatever is, without value judgment, without blame, without shame, without tightness. And I'm curious, like, what do you see as the witness, which is such a critical part of meditation, or the observer?
I want to go to that, but I'm going to stay with the first part of what you just said.
Yeah.
We are creatures of expansion and contraction all the time. Our heart pumps, our breath opens and closes. The world is one of expansion and contraction. The tides from the moon change, Wall Street changes, and so forth. So I want to say the notion that we contract against pain or we can open to it, even that is fluid. And it's really important in meditation and spiritual practice not to use it to set up an ideal, or not to use it, which people can mistakenly use it to judge themselves. Oh, I shut down. Sometimes you need to shut down, and then you open again. So there's something bigger than that, which is the capacity to be with these changes, with the calm oceans and with the storms. As Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh said, when the crowded Vietnamese refugee boats met with storms or pirates, if everyone panicked, all would be lost. But if even one person on the boat remained calm and centered, it was enough. It showed everyone the way to survive. So we're all those people. So for moments and times, we panic, we don't know, we're afraid. All the feelings that come up, especially with huge change and storms. And you will all have storms. I mean, that's part of our shared life, along with beautiful seas. But knowing this, it's also possible there's another dimension of who you are that knows that it's possible to get bigger than, to be more spacious than the events of the moment or the day or even the year or the political cycle. Because everything is in this expansion and contraction, including politics, which swings from conservative to liberal and from this and that. There's something so much bigger. And when we take our seat in meditation or bring that quality that you're inviting of witnessing, the first dimension is presence. Can we actually be present for whatever we're experiencing, including the despair or the fear? And then can we have some perspective that this isn't the first time humanity has faced difficulty? We have thousands of generations of ancestors who survived. And we will too, each in, our contribution to that. And then to practice, to find a way actually to be with it. So you ask about the witness or witnessing. Um, let me see if I can explain or touch it in the simplest way. If you go outside and you put your hand on the trunk of a tree that you are drawn to, and really let yourself feel connected with it, because this is one of the magic things of consciousness, is that not only do we have our own experience, but we can read a novel and go into the life of another person, or watch a movie, or just be there and resonate with one another or the environment. If you put a violin on a table and another in your arms and play certain notes, the violin on the table will resonate with the note strings that you play. We're that profoundly connected. So you put your hand on the tree. It's a beautiful meditation. And you feel, this tree goes through spring and buds and sap rising. It goes through summer and autumn and losing its leaves in winter, and it does it again. And the tree teaches you, it says, yes, find your roots, feel yourself as part of the earth, and trust that you can go through the seasons. So this is both presence and perspective. So here's a way to practice. Let's do a little practice together to try to answer your question about witnessing or having perspective. So those of you who are listening here, if you would be kind enough and experiment, let your eyes close gently. Maybe we'll do 3 or 4 or 5 minutes of a meditation. And once you close your eyes, take a couple of long breaths. And let things settle. Let the eyes and face be soft. Loosen the jaw. Allow the shoulders to relax and the arms and hands rest easily. And feel the weight of your body sink down onto your seat. And as you do, feel that you are completely supported by the earth, as if you have roots like that tree right where you are. Now notice how your body is breathing itself. You don't have to do it. It breathes. And in fact, the earth is breathing you. With each breath, you breathe with the trees and the otters, the earthworms, and the algae. We're all exchanging our breaths. And feel the beautiful exchange of your body breathing, opening, closing. And as if with a bow, express a gratitude. Thank you. Thank you, breath. Thank you to your body and breath for keeping me alive. You don't have to fix it or change it. You just bow in gratitude. And notice too, the whole field of the energy, the vibrations of your body, the sensations that make up body. Pleasant and painful, all kinds of sensations, cool and warm, hard and soft. And notice especially the areas that your body carries stress, the difficulties held in your body. in the jaw or the shoulders and back or the gut. And with loving awareness, simply notice all that your body carries. And as if to bow again, say thank you. Thank you for carrying so much. You can relax. I'm okay just now, just here and now. You can relax and rest. Notice what happens when you say thank you. You can relax. And with the same mindful, loving awareness, notice what the heart and mind is carrying. The emotions of grief and longing and love and fear, agitation and calm. They come like waves of the ocean. So many different feelings carried by the heart mind. Notice which ones are present just now. And notice with the feelings, there are also stories and thoughts and images, plans and memories and endless ideas and figuring things out, analyzing the busy mind, and feel its energy. And say thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me and take care of me, which is what the mind is doing. Thank you to the heart for carrying all these emotions. I'm okay just now. You can relax. You can rest. And let the mind quiet a bit. Thank you for trying to protect me. Let the mind quiet. Let the heart be at ease. Thank you for holding so much. I'm okay. Just here and now. And now notice something really important and beautiful. You can be aware of the breath and body as it changes. You can be aware of the feelings, the emotions, and the thoughts. But these are not who you are. They're constantly changing. Who you are is the consciousness, the awareness, the loving awareness that notices this body and breath, that notices the feelings of all kinds, that notices the thoughts, and relax into the spaciousness of awareness. You are consciousness itself, open, present, aware of what is happening, peaceful, allowing for the rise and fall of experience. Yet who you are is the vast consciousness, the awareness itself, witnessing, spacious. And with this peaceful, spacious attention, you can respond to the world, to the body and the senses and the feelings. The Buddhist texts begin, "O nobly born, remember your true nature. Remember the spacious dignity of presence and rest in it." It's who you really are. So let your eyes open gently. And Ocean, did you experience the difference between the body, the emotions, the thoughts, and the knowing of them, the consciousness? Was that pretty?
Yes, I did. And I don't know if everyone has this sensation, but there's some feeling of like, I've changed. I'm 51 years old. Things about me are very different than they were when I was little, but there's some essential self that feels like eternal, I would have to say at this point, because it's always been there and I believe always will. And a key part of that for me is the witness that is not in the activities of life, but watches them like a compass that knows what north is, regardless of what direction you spin or where you go. And that place to me is quite precious because, you know, life has all kinds of turbulence and roller coasters and heartbreak and hopes and beauty, and the place that just is, which I feel you like calling us into, inviting us to notice and attune to right now. Like that's my peace place, you know?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of things to say. First, people often think that mindfulness is some kind of activity that will help you make things better and get rid of the stress and see things clearly, and all that's true. When I added the phrase "thank you," like a little bow to your breath or body or emotions, it sets the right relationship, because instead of feeling like I have to get rid of the stress in my body or I have to stop my mind from thinking about this so much, you can say thank you, and things start to soften, not because you're trying to judge it or change it, but because you're making space and appreciating it. And then this brings you back to the place of understanding. Now, the question that will arise for all of us in this is, but how do we engage this troubled world from this place?
Mm-hmm.
After becoming president, writes Nelson, I asked one of my bodyguards, two of them, to go for a walk in town. Let's have lunch. So we went to one of the central restaurants, and after a bit of waiting, the waiter came and took our orders, and I realized that at the table right in front of us, there was a single man also being served. When he was served, I told one of my guards to go ask that man to join us. He went and transmitted the request, and the man stood up, brought his plate, and sat next to me. While eating, his hands were constantly shaking, and he didn't lift his head from his food. When we finished, he waved at me without even looking. I shook his hand, and he walked away. One of the guards said to me, Madiba, That man must be very sick, as his hands wouldn't stop trembling and shaking while he was eating. Not at all. The reason for his tremor is another, I replied. They looked at me and I said, that man was the guardian of the jail I was locked in for 27 years. Often, after the torture I was subjected to, I screamed and cried for water, and he came to humiliate me. He laughed at me. Instead of giving me water, he urinated on my head. He wasn't sick. He was scared and shook, maybe fearing that I, now president of South Africa, would send him to jail and do the same thing he did with me, torturing and humiliating him. But that is not me. That behavior is not a part of my character, nor of my ethics. Minds that seek revenge destroy human beings and whole nations, while those that seek reconciliation bring beauty on this earth. So it's a remarkable passage. And I read it because it speaks to the question of, if we quiet the mind and step back with some perspective rather than being engaged in every emotion, now there's grief and fear, and now there's hope, and now there's what, and all the thoughts, well, what if and this and that? They're trying to help you, and they need to be honored and felt. Mm-hmm. But who we are more fundamentally is bigger than that. And from that place, not only can we see and hold the fear and grief in a compassionate heart, but also we have the space to act in an entirely different way, to not get caught up in the reactions and the anger and all the kinds of scenarios that we are afraid of. And instead, the nobility of heart, which is who you are, the dignity, the original dignity which Nelson Mandela carried, that can shine. And you act from that.